The Carolina Panthers have already made a bunch of moves in free agency, so how will that affect their first round selections? My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan. We've got another 3-round mock draft for you here coming up in a moment. But before we do that, be sure to subscribe to the Tracy Take, tackle that bell, and leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you think the Panthers should do come April. Ryan, let's pull this up here. They have already made a lot of moves overall, signing Tershawn Wharton, signing Bobby Brown, and also extending a lot of key guys like J.C. Horn, Mike Jackson, signing on Trayvon Morrig as well. They've even signed their punter, Sam Martin, as well to a 1-year deal. Huge move as a whole. But how are these moves going to affect their overall impact when it comes to picking 8th overall? I don't believe it's going to change their overall target as a whole, especially to the way our draft board went out. I still think they're going to go defensive line here as a whole. So, and it could be
Yeah.
anywhere on the defensive line, in my humble opinion. So, it could be defensive tackle, could be edge rusher, it could be whatever you want it to be. We ended up going with Shermar Stewart. We think he's going to be rising a lot more just because of his overall physical attributes and how he tested at the combine. We've seen a lot of guys do that over the past couple of years, and we think Shermar Stewart might be no different. But if you don't like that, I could easily see Mike Green going there. I could maybe see them going Kenneth Grant. Maybe not as much as Kenneth Grant now as they went with Bobby Brown
Yeah.
and Tershawn Wharton, but still
I
they could go Michael Williams. They could go James Pierce Jr. I think
yeah.
anything on the defensive line is going to be the approach. Love to hear Panthers' thoughts on that in the comments if you disagree. But Ryan, what are your thoughts as a whole?
Yeah. I mean, there have been great combine performances, but I think Shamar Stewart was probably one of the most impressive I've ever seen. He was literally the most athletic edge rusher ever tested. And like you go and look at some of the freaks that have come out there, like you go look at Myles Garrett's combine, and it was very, very comparable to that. And so I feel like this is a really high upside pick. I do think there actually is a relatively high floor with this pick as well. I know he had very limited sack production in college, but you go look at his pressures and his pass rush win rate. I feel like that he has a lot of the statistical uh, boxes checked that you look for when thinking of a first round edge rusher. He just also on top of that has this elite athletic profile when that if put in the right system and given the right coaching could turn into this monstrous edge rusher for this team. And so I feel like this is well worth the 8th pick here for the Carolina Panthers. They invested a lot in the interior. You look, Derek Brown should hopefully be coming back from injury. You mentioned Bobby Brown, Tershawn Wharton, Jadeveon Clowney is also back as well next
Mm-hmm.
year. I think Shamar Stewart would be a perfect pick for this system, and I think too. Jadeveon Clowney is an aging guy, and so I feel like Jadeveon Clowney, having been around the block a few times, having Shamar Stewart, even if maybe he's not the most productive rookie, I think learning under a guy like Jadeveon Clowney would be very beneficial for him as he looks to
Yeah.
up his sack production at the NFL level.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. And so, as you said, I still think anything defensive line is gonna be the approach, especially too just with how abysmal that
Yeah.
defensive line was last year. So moving on now to the second round pick as a whole, as they don't have their original pick, but they have the Rams second round pick. And so I think another sneaky spot that they could end up going here. This is going to be about where a lot of these second round receivers are going to start going. As you can see, Alec Ironmaner was taken right before him, Trey Harris, and even Jack Bash was also taken right after the Panthers pick. But I do think there's a sneaky need at receiver here. They did a draft Xavier Legette. Jalen Coker had a great season last year and was a very pleasant surprise, but Adam Thielen is still getting older. Well, everybody's getting older technically, but Adam Thielen is still older, definitely on the other side of 30 as a whole. He's not going to be there forever. So you're still going to want to go and have more options for Bryce Young and this offense as a whole. I think Savion Williams would work really well in this Dave Canales type defense. Sorry, offense. I wouldn't play him at defense. But I think offensively, I think he would be a great complement overall to what the other guys and the other people in that receiving room uh, have to offer. And so, Ryan, what are your thoughts on Savion Williams and how he'd fit in this Dave Canales system?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing here, you have Adam Thielen, you have Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker, but you don't really have anybody outside of that. You have like Dax Milne, Dan Chisenya, Bryson Tremaine, and TJ Luther are all like back end of the roster guys. So I think
Yeah.
going and investing in third, fourth wide receiver here with pick 57, I think is going to be essential, or well, in the top 100. But getting Savion Williams here, I think, just opens up a lot of doors creatively for Dave Canales and this offense. The other guys are more like the true route runner, true receivers, where Savion Williams can really be put wherever in an offense. He's lined up in the backfield. He's lined up at Wildcat. And I think Dave Canales could really benefit from having a Swiss Army knife type wide receiver. And so he can do a little bit of everything, but he is kind of one of those guys. I think he's going to make Bryce Young's life a lot easier because you can just get the ball in this guy's hands and he can go try to make a play. And so I think that's what is really intriguing about this Savion Williams pick. They could go a more traditional like Jack Besh route. My only thing there is you have Xavier Legette, who was your first round pick last year. I feel like there's some overlap there as like with those two players. And so Jalen Royals, I think, was still on the board. Trey Harris went a couple picks after this if they want like the true dominant X receiver. So you really could go any way with or any wide receiver that you want. We just went with Savion Williams simply because we think Dave Canales' creativity in his play calling would benefit Savion Williams, and he would be fun to see in this offense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you there. So a lot of different rounds they could end up going here. And so then with their final pick, I think here with the moves that they've made overall for the agency as of right now, then with these first two picks, I do think it's best player available. We ended up going with the secondary as a whole. We know that they paid J.C. Horn a historic contract. They also re-signed Mike Jackson. So maybe they could go a different route when it comes to safety. I'll bring that up here in general. But still, they don't really have much behind them as a whole. As of right now,
Yeah.
according to our lads, when we're recording this on March 13th. They have Akileb Evans and then also Shermar Bartholomew. Those are two backup outside corners as well, but they don't have any nickel corner backups as of right now behind Chow Smith Wade. And as of right now, the starting free safety is Damani Richardson, and the strong safety, according to our lads, is Trayvon Mordick. So we end up going with Azareye'h Thomas, a very a cornerback with a high ceiling coming out of the combine as a whole. I think anything secondary would be a good option. So if they wanted to not go Azareye'h Thomas here, but address a free safety spot, I think Andrew Makuba, who is still available, I think would be interesting. But also, I think maybe to see what other potential needs they might have on the offensive line, as like Tate Rutledge was still on the board as well. So, Ryan, what are your thoughts on Azareye'h Thomas and what he can bring here to this Panthers team?
Yeah, I defensive front, if they do get a Shermar Stewart earlier on in this draft, this is going to be a very aggressive unit. And so I feel like getting a very aggressive corner, I feel like will fit that system well. And so he does have some limitations in terms of like long speed, but I feel like in that division, I think he would match up well with Drake London. I actually think he would match up better with like a Mike Evans, where Mike Evans, who is a Hall of Fame wide receiver, so don't get me wrong, but like he's not gonna just totally burn you off the line of scrimmage with sheer speed. Has that build up speed. And I feel like Azareye'h Thomas is that way as well. Where J.C. Horn is more of like your true athlete at corner. So I like the compliment here and the fit. And so, all in all, I mean, the Panthers, I think they've done such a good job of one, bringing in talent on the defensive side of the ball already this offseason, but then just developing some of the young talent over the last couple seasons, specifically Bryce Young in this offensive line, I think has been just tremendous. And we really started to see the fruits of that labor in the second half of last season.
Well, I think the big thing too is just the development of Bryce Young as a whole. I think getting Dave Canales in there has helped it a lot. I think another big thing too, probably their maybe most important signing, was keeping Andy Dalton actually to
Yeah.
help back up Bryce Young, because I think he has been a great influence on Bryce Young and his overall development. And so I think it's worth every penny as a whole, because even though I know Dave Canales and them didn't draft Bryce Young, but it's like he's the franchise quarterback. It's like
Yeah.
you have a lot invested in him, and so you want to see him do well and develop. And so I really like what they've done with J.C. Horn, locking him down. He's an extremely underrated corner in this league. I really love the move so far that they've made in free agency, and so I think if you go make this draft, I think we maybe could have done a little bit better, like depending on like maybe positional needs, like maybe we go Mike Green instead of Shermar Stewart, but and then I think maybe too. Instead of going cornerback there, we try and get more pure free safety like Andrew Makuba, or maybe another. secondary guy that might be able to come in and contribute immediately outside of like Trayvon Moehrig. And so just because of the overall just lack of depth as a whole as of right now in that whole secondary room. So, but in general, though, the Panthers are going to be a very interesting team to watch. I know I will be watching them extremely closely this offseason to see how good they get. I hope they're not too good. And it's not as good as the Falcons, of course.
Yeah, I actually do think, not saying like the Panthers are going to be Super Bowl contenders, but I do think that they will be probably threatening for a wild card or maybe even the division this year. If they continue that trajectory that they were on last season, I feel like that they could be a dark horse wild card
I'll
team.
I'll end it with this: if they're able to run the ball the way that they were last year, anything's possible for them.
Yeah,
Said defense was so bad, but that offense, that running game was able to keep them in a lot of those games, especially in the second half of the season.
yeah.
And so if they're able to run the ball like that, and this defense can just become below average, not like like one of the worst defenses in the league, giving up like what 173 rushing yards a game,
Th- They were
like
the worst rushing defense in the league by like I think about 30 or over 30 yards, which
30 or
is
35 yards, which is
yeah,
absurd. That's wild.
yeah. And like the
Uh,
difference between 31 and 30 was like 6 or 7 yards. Like it
yeah,
was not it's still a lot, but that's not nearly
yeah.
the difference there. So let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of this Panthers 3-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently than that? We'll see you guys next time.